It's Coastal Gardener on the Talk Station FM 107.1. And joining us today, Sean Banks of the Carter County Cooperative Agricultural Extension Agency. And who you've been cooperating with here recently, Sean. Good afternoon to you.
Well, good afternoon. I've been working with a lot of people, actually. We've had a lot of phone calls that have come into the office with a lot of different things and trying to figure stuff out and help people get solutions to what's ailing their plants.
You know, that leads to an interesting question very quickly, and you've got other things to talk about today. But do you see a peak and decline in calls based on, growing season, warmth, cold, that sort of thing, or is it consistent across the board? I'm assuming because more people are out in their yards, they're doing more things because of spring, summer, and fall, and you're probably getting more calls, but maybe not, because you've got house plants you have to deal with as well.
Well, we get more calls during what we would call peak seasons, being spring and fall, but they don't seem to completely go away during the summer and the winter times either. So we've had several calls this summer for a lot of different things, plants, different insects that people are seeing. Had a lot of turf grass calls, but they just haven't seemed to completely go away. They'll die off to 2 or 3 a day instead of 5 or 10 a day, but we still get quite a few calls.
Okay, now the other question goes to the type of calls you get. Are they calls of concerns or calls of just interest that, well, how can I improve something? Or is it, you mentioned, insects and diseases. Do you get more calls for those kind of circumstances, or for how can I improve my garden, my yard, or my shrubbery?
I wish I would get more calls on what can I do to improve, but unfortunately, most of the calls I get are, my plant is dying, what can I do to save it? And hopefully they call when it's just starting to die and not when it's already dead.
All those dead twigs out there, is there any way we can put leaves on? All right, so in other words, you're getting a lot of, I'll call them crisis calls, emergencies calls, concern calls.
Yes, we get a lot of those, yes.
And of course, just to give a little prop to the Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency and you, in order to avoid those emergency calls, sometimes it wouldn't hurt to make the calls in advance and say, how can I better tend my garden, my yard, my shrubbery?
Yes, or when you first start to notice something just a little bit off, instead of waiting until it's a big fire, call when it's just a couple of sparks or a little bit of a flame.
Okay, and by the way, just to make mention of that, every county has an agriculture extension agent, a cooperative agriculture extension agents. I got to put the co-op in there. And where would we go if we want to find information? Where would we go to find out what number I should call?
The easiest way to find that is to type in your county name, and then type it after you type in your county name. So, for instance, if you were in Carteret County, you would type in Carteret.ces for Cooperative Extension Service.
Okay.
.ncsu.edu for North Carolina State University Education. And then your county cooperative extension office would pop up, and on the left-hand menu, there's a place that says Meet Our Staff, and you can just click on that and find out which staff member would be best to answer your question.
Okay, so just starting off with the fact that you've been getting a lot of calls here recently, what have been the major topics or concerns that you've had of the past couple of weeks?
A lot of the ones over the last couple of weeks is turf grass questions. People are concerned about their turf grass. They're seeing holes, or the grass hasn't completely greened up, a little bit of yellowing. Some of those, if the area is dead, some of those calls have been about, when we've gone out there and taken a look, have been insect pest problems like ground pearls or mole crickets. But a lot of the calls, when the grass is just yellowing, it's either compacted turf or there's a problem with the pH or nutrient levels in the soil.
Okay, I want to talk about the two items. The ground pearls, what are those?
Ground pearls are kind of like scale insects. If you've ever seen a scale that latches onto the tree, probably the one that most people would be familiar with would be Indian wax scale. It's a white scale that holds onto the tree. And if you go up and you rub on it, it just rubs right off, and there's pink on the underside of it, but it's a waxy color on the outside. But ground pearl is very closely related to a scale, or a Indian wax scale, in that it hatches out in the springtime, crawls around, it finds some grass roots to suck the juices out of. It puts its proboscis or its mouth part into the root system so it can suck the juices out of that grass. And then it forms a hard shell over the outside of it so that other insects or chemicals can't get to it that way to kill it.
Okay. What do you do to get rid of them?
The best thing to do, because there aren't any insecticides that have been proven to be effective against ground pearls, the best thing to do is going to be to keep your grass healthy. So check your soil, make sure that the pH is in the range for that kind of turf, and make sure that your phosphorus and potassium levels are in the right range, and then mow at the right height and don't mow too much of the grass off at one time, and fertilize according to what your grass needs in order for best growth.
Okay, but if I have ground pearls, can I get rid of them? Sounds to me like you can't.
There's not a chemical that is labeled for use against them that's actually effective. There are some chemicals that you can use, but a lot of times what they find is you'll see a short decline in them, and then 3 weeks or 3 months later, you'll see a huge increase.
Okay, then what if I do if I've got them in my yard and they're established? What do I do? Just excise my yard, that area of the yard, remove it?
They actually say not to do that because they tend to come right back in, because you usually don't get all of the ground pearls, and then they start coming back into the area, and then they can come in a little bit worse than they were before, because if there's a population there, there's probably already fungal pathogens that attack them, or natural predators that feed on them. So you don't want to remove them, because then when they come back in, there's nothing there to feed on them. So the best thing to do is really to get your lawn healthy. And a lot of times if your lawn is healthy and vigorously growing, it can outgrow the damage that's done by the insect.
Okay. And what was the other one you were talking about?
Mole crickets.
Okay.
Mole crickets are, some of the damage is done. There's actually two different kinds of mole crickets. One is the tawny mole cricket, and that one is the one that's the one that feeds on the grass roots. And it'll go around and it'll burrow just underneath the soil surface. So kind of like you see a tunnel from a regular mole, you'll see these tunnels, only they'll be just really small, about the diameter of your finger. So they're not huge tunnels like a mole tunnel, but they are a little tunnel there, and they just feed on the grass roots, and it kills the grass by eating the roots off the plants.
And what can you do about those?
There are chemical controls that you can use for those. It's a whole lot easier if you do those chemicals when the mole cricket is really small, so just after the eggs hatch, which would be May, June timeframe.
Okay.
So we could still use the chemicals, but they're closer to being adults at this point, so it's going to take more of that chemical to control them than it would if you controlled them when they were a little bit smaller.
Okay. Maintaining a healthy lawn, does that prevent both mole crickets and, of course, ground pearls, you're saying, as well?
Well, the mole crickets, you won't see the damage as much. They're still going to do the damage, so you'll still see a little bit of that damage there from the mole crickets, because even with the healthy lawn, it'll be able to regrow, but they're actually feeding on and killing the root, so they're removing the root from the top of the plant. So you're going to see that damage. That there's just no way around that.
Okay. What do you look for in the case of the ground pearls relative to knowing that you've got them? I mean, just dead areas, or can you see them? Can you see the destruction before it becomes too rampant?
A lot of times they'll start off with a small yellowing patch, and then the yellow patch will get a little bit bigger, and then in the center of that yellow patch it'll die. They don't grow the patch doesn't grow very fast. It's usually it's usually a slow growing dead spot, and that dead spot grows during the summertime, which helps you to distinguish that from a lot of the fungal pathogens which cause their death and destruction in the fall and in the spring. So if you have a dead patch that's getting bigger during the summertime and you're watering and you're fertilizing, there may be something else wrong. You may not have enough nutrients in the soil, or the pH might be off, but you could also have ground pearls in there that's causing that problem.
Okay. You mentioned pH and the ground by the nutrients in the ground. Would this be detected if I did soil samples and I send a soil sample off to you all?
Yes, most of the time when somebody calls in and they're seeing some damage in their turf, I will recommend that they take a soil sample,
Okay.
send that off to NCDA Soil Test Lab and get that soil tested. And then when that comes back, we'll look at that and see if it's more likely a pH or a nutrient issue, or if it's more likely a pest or disease.
Okay, let's talk about this before we go to the break. Then we're going to get on the items that you brought in here. And we're talking with Sean Banks again, Carteret County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency. And remind you, there in every county in North Carolina, there's an agent. So take advantage of their expertise, and in the process, quite frankly, save yourself time and money. All right, related to time and money, we can do soil samples right now for no charge. I want to go to that very quickly before we go to the break, so that remind people about that. Where do they get the sample boxes? You've got them in Carteret County. Where do I get the sample boxes? What do I do? And how long does it take?
Okay, well, here in Carteret County, if you're looking for a sample box, you can come to, well, in any county, you can go to the extension office.
Right.
They'll have the boxes and the forms that you'll need at the extension office. Here in Carteret County, because we're such a long, skinny county, rather than making people drive all the way from down east all the way into Morehead City to get a soil sample box, I have some boxes at the Ace Hardware. They've agreed to keep some boxes there and just call me when they start getting low. So I keep some boxes there at the Ace Hardware in the Garden Center. And on the western end of the county, I have some boxes at the Cedar Point Town Hall. They have some there. In Newport, at Newport Garden Center, there's some boxes there as well. Then I also have some here in Morehead City at what is that? Friendly Market, and also at the landscaping company right there on Arundel Street, Pullman Landscape Supplies.
Yep. All right. I think it's important. Okay. After I do my boxes, how long does it take to get a sample back?
Once you have taken your soil sample and you box it up and you send it into the NCDA Soil Test Lab, right now their lead time is about 1 to 2 weeks.
That's not bad.
That's why it's better for most home gardeners to send it in during the summertime. One, it doesn't cost anything, and two, their lead time is a lot less than it would be during the winter.
Okay, I'm going to discover when I get my sample back that I need to improve the nitrogen or the phosphorus in my yard. Is there sufficient time? Here we are coming into July for me to do enough to make a big difference this year.
This year, you'll see a little bit of a difference, but with the phosphorus, potassium, and the pH adjusters, they usually take a few months for them to be fully effective. But I would go ahead and get started on that as soon as possible, so that you can have the best chance of having a great green, fantastic looking grass next summer.
Exactly. All right, we're talking with Sean Banks again, Carteret County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agent here on Coastal Gardener. It's Coastal Gardener on the Talk Station FM 107.1, and we're joined by Sean Banks of Carteret County's Cooperative, I got the cooperative in there, Agriculture Extension Agency. We were talking, I always do this, I jump right in with a variety of questions. What have you got on tap today?
Well, I wanted to talk about two insects that are little bloodsuckers. I wanted to talk about
mosquitoes,
mosquitoes, and I wanted to talk about ticks.
Okay.
This summer, for some reason, I have had or found more ticks on me than I have the past 4 summers combined. And I think it had a lot to do with the cool or mild winter that we had this winter. But just so that in case other people are seeing that as well, I just wanted you to be aware that they're out there. You can find them, and they can cause some damage.
Yeah, you can get, was it deer tick disease? Am I correct on that?
Well, there's we do have deer ticks in our area, and they will, if you get the wrong one, it will give you some diseases.
Can you identify the tick just by looking at it? I mean, can you, for example? I don't know that the average person could.
I am not 100% positive on every single tick that I see. I can get pretty close. I mean, there are some characteristics. For example, the Lone Star tick that we also have in our area. That one carries the Lyme disease and a couple other diseases. Right. That one, if I see the female, it has that yellow spot on the back. I'm pretty sure I could identify that one.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a medical question. You may want to avoid this or discard it. What do you do if you have a tick? Can you extract it without? Is there a way to do it in such a fashion that you would reduce the possibility of Lyme disease or deer tick disease or something of this nature?
That is an excellent question, and I can't answer that one. There is a website from the University of Rhode Island, and you can Google it by just typing in tick encounter, all one word. Tick Encounter has a lot of great information.
Okay.
They had they have medical personnel that have helped put that in. One of the things that I discovered on that website is that it usually takes about 10 to 12 hours of that tick feeding on you. Once it's embedded, its proboscis, it takes 10 to 12 hours before it actually transmits the virus.
So you need to, in other words, I'll be blunt, check yourself regularly throughout the day.
Yes, one of the
Okay.
the top five actions is check yourself every day.
That is important.
Yeah.
No, I mean, well, if you're out in the woods, every 2 hours, check your ankles, check your, and they like where the body bends, the elbow and the crook of the knee and things like that, right?
They like warm, moist locations.
Yes.
So in the groin area, right there on your waist where your belt is.
Yes, yeah.
That's under the arms.
This is important because Lyme disease is not something you want to muck around with.
No, Lyme disease is one that you don't want to mess around with. Eastern encephalitis is another one. I think there's three E's, so I don't remember what the other one is. Equine. Eastern equine encephalitis is another one that they carry. You don't want to mess around with that one either. But it's one of the other things that I learned is that ticks like to climb up. They don't climb up and then around the belt and back down in. They're going to continue going up. So if you keep your shirt tucked into your pants, I know a lot of the younger generation doesn't like to do that.
Well, the pants tucked into your socks.
And if you if your pants are long pants, then they're going to usually land on your pants and crawl up the outside of the pants and up the shirt.
Okay.
But if your pants are cropped off a little bit, a lot of times they're going to hit at ankle height. So if your pants are cropped up a little bit, then yes, tuck your pants into your socks, and that way they keep going up, and they end up on your shirt on the outside instead of on the inside.
Hopefully you'll see them before they embed themselves. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
But if they do happen to embed, one of the better things to do, I think they also have a place on there, and I wasn't able to search long enough to find it, but I think they have a tool that you can get that has a point on there. It looks a lot like the little tool that my mom and my grandma used to use to thread their needle when they would sew. So it comes to a little bit of a point, and you can put that over the tick and then pull that across so that it comes in contact with the proboscis, and then pull it out that way.
All right.
Or if you've got pointy tweezers, pinch right down there by the head and pull it out.
Right.
And don't just jerk it out and break off the proboscis. Pull it gently until it comes out. That way you're less likely to have a piece of the tick left inside you.
And trust me, killing a tick is not easy. Flushing it down the toilet is the best thing in the world, and I'm sure that all right. So, all right, that's ticks. What about mosquitoes?
Mosquitoes, since we've had a lot of rain in the last couple of weeks, now is a really good time to be very cautious about that. One of the things that I always recommend doing is going outside after the rain has gone and you've had a day of dry weather. Make sure that you don't have any standing water. That's where most mosquitoes are going to breed. And so if you've got, like I have a pot that's sitting in a dish to keep the water there. Take the pot off the dish, empty the water out of the dish, and because that's where the mosquitoes are going to breed, is in that water that's in the dish. If you have a bird bath, I know it's great to keep the water in the bird bath so that the birds can continue to have somewhere to bathe and get some water. Flush that bird bath out. Put your water hose on
and
just splash everything out, and then fill it back up again. That way you're getting rid of all the mosquito larvae that might be in the bird bath, and you have clean water for the birds. Not that they really care, because I've seen them bathing in mud
you could
puddles.
raise lots of frogs.
Well, you could do that too.
No.
Another thing that some people have, like a water pond, just a lily pond, something like that. There are products out there, mosquito dunks, and then mosquito bits or granules that you can put in there. And what that does is it has a species of BT that attacks specifically the mosquito larva.
Okay.
And so it's not going to cause any damage to anything else. It's just going to attack the mosquito larva. Follow the label directions on that and reapply those as needed so that you can keep those mosquito larvae to a lower level. But things that you might not think about, a lot of people have boats and they cover the boats up with a tarp.
Yep.
If that tarp holds water, splash the water off of that tarp if you're not going to be taking the boat out over the weekend, to make sure that that doesn't leave a breeding ground for mosquitoes in that little puddle that's in the tarp.
I'm going to go back to ticks here for a moment before we wrap things up with you. Sean Banks again with Carter County's Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency with us here on Coastal Gardener. Are there certain areas that are more tick prone? I'm thinking, for example, areas of pine straw where you would find more ticks than you would in other areas in the yard or in the shrubbery.
Generally, tall grass is going to be more of a location.
Okay.
So if you're walking along a trail and it's got tall grass that's hanging out over the trail, or if you're just walking through the woods through the tall grass, you're more likely to get a tick doing that than you would be, say, playing around in a park or something like that where the grass is continuously mowed.
Okay, what about in shrubbery and things like that?
Most of the time they're going to be on grasses. So occasionally you might find them on some low shrubs, but most of the time they're going to be on grasses. They'll crawl up. So as a warm-blooded animal, a deer or a person or a dog walks by, they're going to be able to latch on, and they'll be up at a ankle height between the ankle and the knee. That's usually where they're going to first get on there, and then they'll go up from there.
Not to degrade any pet owners, but pets do bring home ticks.
They do, and so one of the things that I usually recommend is make sure that you either have a tick repellent collar or give them their medicine so that they'll be able to have something that'll be able to get rid of the ticks, prevent them from being able to latch on.
But if they'll latch on for a period of time and then fall off, and they can still be in the house.
A lot of times, though, if you're using the insect repellents, the flea, tick, and whatever else killer, a lot of times that's going to kill the ticks, and when they drop off, they're dead. They're not continuously crawling around.
Okay, we're coming into July. As I recall our last conversation, those of us what have centipede should think about doing one more fertilization.
One more fertilizer application between the first and the middle of July. So this would be a good time to do that. If you made that first application in May, now would be a good time to go ahead and make that second application, so that most of the nitrogen will be out of the soil before the grass starts to go dormant.
Let's talk about the ingredients in that fertilizer. What should they be?
If you haven't had a soil sample done and you have centipede, I would recommend using a 15-0-15.
Okay.
If you've had a soil sample done and your potassium levels are between 50 and 70 on the potassium index, then you can just use a nitrogen fertilizer, just a 21-0-0.
Okay.
And just to green it up just a little bit and keep it through the rest of the year.
Give us the proper description. What's the first number?
First number is the nitrogen. The second number is the phosphorus, and the third number is the potassium.
And phosphorus is not a necessity here in eastern North Carolina.
Most of our soils have plenty of phosphorus in there, and we don't need to add that.
All right.
But if your soil sample has come back and you need to add the phosphorus, then try to find a fertilizer with the phosphorus in it.
All right. And then the other grasses, zoysia and Bermuda and St. Augustine, what should we do?
Most of those grasses are going to need a fertilizer application every month during the summer.
Oh, really?
And so some will need a full pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, and some will need a half a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. So what you'll need to do is we have lawn maintenance calendars that are on our Turf Files website, and you can go find that lawn maintenance calendar and look up what amount of fertilizer you need for the month of July. I think most of them are going to be 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet.
All right, that's Turf Files. TURFFILES.
Correct.
Okay, and one final thing before we wrap it up. Back to the tick. It's tick encounter. Just type in tick, T-I-C-K, encounter.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sean. Sean Banks with us with the Carteret County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency here on Coastal Gardener.